The explosions lit up the dark sky like deadly fireworks. Ambassador Vren stood in the command room, watching the screens that showed his world dying. His 4 eyes moved from one display to another, and each one told the same terrible story. They were losing. The Krell ships hung in orbit like metal vultures, waiting for the final kill. On the ground, Krell soldiers pushed forward from all sides. The circle around the last safe city grew smaller with each passing hour. "Sir, the west side is falling," a young officer called out. Her crystal body flickered with stress. She was Shallan, a species that made beautiful art, but knew nothing about war until the Krell came. Vren turned to Commander Thex, a massive creature made of living rock. The Bronthar were builders, not fighters. Like everyone else here, Thex had learned to fight because he had no choice. "How long can we hold?" Vren asked. Thex's stone face cracked as he frowned. 6 hours. Maybe 8 if we are lucky." 8 hours. Vren felt his chest deflate. They had fought for 3 long months. 6 different alien species had joined together to defend this planet. None of them were warriors. The Talar studied science and philosophy. The Shallans created art and traded goods. The Bronthar built cities and bridges. They were peaceful people forced to become soldiers. The Krell Empire wanted this planet for its valuable crystals. They did not care about the people who lived here. They would kill everyone to take what they wanted. A young Talar officer suddenly spoke up. "Sir, we have a message. It is on the emergency channel we sent to the humans 3 weeks ago." Vren's 2 hearts beat faster. 3 weeks ago, when everything seemed hopeless, they had sent a desperate call for help to Earth. Humans were new to space travel. They had only learned to fly faster than light 40 years ago. But everyone in the galaxy knew about them. They were strange, unpredictable, and dangerous in a fight. Most alien species feared humans. They were too aggressive, too emotional, too willing to fight. But right now, Vren did not want peace-loving neighbors. He wanted fighters. "Put the message through," he ordered. Static filled the air, then a human voice spoke. The accent was rough, the words direct. "This is Captain Jack Morrison of Earth Defense Force, commanding the 7th Vanguard Legion. We got your call, Ambassador Vren. We are 3 hours away. Can you hold?" 3 hours. Vren looked at the screens again. The red marks showing enemy positions outnumbered his blue marks 10-1. The safe zone around the city was shrinking fast, but what choice did he have? "We will hold," Vren said, trying to sound confident. "We will hold until you arrive." "Good," Morrison replied. "We did not come all this way to be late. We will see you soon." The message ended. Around the command room, officers from 6 different species looked at each other. Everyone was thinking the same thing. One human military unit could not possibly save them. The mathematics were clear. The Krell had too many ships, too many soldiers, too many weapons. But Vren had learned something about humans. They did not think like other species. They did not care about mathematics when lives were at stake. They had a saying he found both scary and hopeful. "Never tell me the odds." "Attention all forces," Vren announced over the communication system. "Earth's military is 3 hours away. We hold until then. We hold no matter what happens." Outside the command room, the bombing grew worse. The Krell were pushing hard now, trying to break through before help could arrive. Far from the city, Lieutenant Peter Grant crouched behind a broken wall. He was human, part of a small team that had come to advise the coalition forces months ago. Now he was the only human on the planet's surface. The rest of his team had died in the first weeks of fighting. Around him, his mixed squad of alien soldiers fought desperately. Terran, a young Shallan, fired his weapon at the advancing Krell. His crystal armor showed cracks from previous battles. "Movement on the left!" Terran shouted. Peter swung his rifle and fired 3 quick shots. 3 Krell soldiers fell. The Krell were big reptile creatures covered in thick armor and filled with hate. They never took prisoners. They never showed mercy. "Fall back to the next position," Peter ordered. His squad moved quickly, even though they were from different worlds with different bodies. Peter had trained them well. He had taught them Earth tactics, Earth discipline, Earth stubbornness. His radio crackled with static. "Grant, this is command. The west side is breaking. We need you there now." Peter looked at his tired squad. They were wounded, exhausted, and scared. But they were also ready to keep fighting. "You heard them," he said. "Let us move." They ran through streets that used to be beautiful. The Talar had built their city to be a work of art. Now it was full of blast marks and rubble. Buildings that had stood for centuries were now broken shells. When they reached the west side, Peter saw how bad things were. Krell heavy armor was pushing through the last defense line. Coalition soldiers were dying in large numbers. Peter immediately started giving orders, organizing a fighting retreat. They used buildings for cover, set traps, made the Krell pay for every step forward. But it was not enough. It would never be enough. "Lieutenant, we cannot hold this," Terran said quietly. His voice was full of despair. Peter checked his weapon. The power cell was almost empty. "We don't need to hold forever, just 13 more minutes." High above them in space, 5 Earth ships had arrived early. They had used a dangerous jump through space that almost destroyed them, but they made it. Now they faced the Krell fleet alone. Commander Lisa Hayes stood on the bridge of the Defiant, holding on to her console as the ship shook from enemy fire. Explosions rocked the vessel from all sides. "Shields at 30%, her officer reported. "We cannot take much more damage." "We just need to survive a little longer," Lisa said. She watched the screens showing the space battle. 20 Krell ships surrounded her 5 Earth vessels. The odds were terrible, but they had to hold. The Earth ships were smaller than most alien warships, but they were fast and deadly. Humans built their ships with one goal in mind: pack in as many weapons as possible. "Captain Morrison is calling us," the communication officer said. Lisa opened the channel. Morrison's face appeared on the screen. Even through the static and stress, he was smiling. "How are you doing, Lisa?" "We are still here," she replied. "But we need that Legion soon." 2 minutes, Morrison said. "We are coming in fast. Get clear of the upper atmosphere." "Understood?" Lisa switched to the fleet channel. "All Earth ships, pull back to high orbit. The cavalry is about to arrive." On the ground, Peter counted down the last seconds. His squad was in a half-collapsed building with almost no protection. The Krell were 50 meters away and getting closer. 40 meters, 30 meters. Peter loaded his last power cell into his rifle. The opening in space was like nothing anyone had ever seen. It appeared directly in the atmosphere, breaking every rule of safe space travel. No species did this because it was too dangerous. Ships could be torn apart. Crews could be killed. But humans had never cared much about safety when people needed saving. 7 massive ships burst through the opening. They were Vanguard-class carriers, the largest warships Earth had ever built. Each one was a floating fortress packed with soldiers, weapons, and determination. From their bellies poured thousands of drop pods. Each pod carried 10 human soldiers in powered armor. They fell toward the planet like metal rain. Captain Jack Morrison stood in the command center of the lead carrier, the Valiant. He watched his screens as the deployment happened exactly as planned. Around him, officers worked at their stations with practiced efficiency. "All Legion drop pods away," Commander Danny Price reported. "Ground forces will land in 90 seconds. "Excellent," Morrison said. He opened a channel to the Defiant. "Lisa, you still alive?" "Barely," Hayes replied. Her ship had taken heavy damage holding off the Krell fleet. "Nice job holding them. Now let us finish this." Morrison switched to the fleet-wide channel. "All ships, engage the Krell fleet. Show them why you don't mess with Earth." The 7 carriers opened fire at the same time. The space around the planet lit up with weapons fire. Railguns fired solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. Plasma cannons threw balls of superheated matter. Missiles streaked toward their targets. Energy weapons cut through the darkness. Earth did not believe in small weapons. If something was worth shooting, it was worth shooting with everything you had. The Krell had more ships, but humans had something else. They had anger. They had purpose. They had come to stop a massacre. On the ground, Peter Grant and his squad watched the sky fill with drop pods. Thousands of them, falling in perfect formation, creating a ring around the Krell forces. The pods hit the ground hard, throwing up dirt and rocks. Their doors blew open with small explosions. What came out of those pods made the Krell soldiers take a step back. Human Marines in powered armor. The suits made each soldier strong as a Bronthar and fast as a Shallan. They carried heavy weapons designed specifically to punch through Krell armor. They moved together like parts of one giant machine. The Krell commander, who moments ago had been celebrating his victory, now found himself surrounded. He shouted orders to his troops, trying to regroup, but the humans did not give him time. They attacked immediately. Colonel Amy Foster led the ground assault. She had been a soldier for 20 years and had seen combat on a dozen worlds. She knew how to fight, and she knew how to win. 1st Battalion hit them from the east. 2nd Battalion go straight through their center. 3rd Battalion cut off their escape route. 4th Battalion, you are with me. We are going right down their throat. The human forces moved like a well-oiled machine. They used tactics the Krell had never encountered. Flanking attacks, covering fire, coordinated strikes. They moved fast and hit hard. But more than tactics, they fought with something the Krell could not understand. They fought for others. The Krell fought to conquer and take. The humans fought to protect and save. They were fighting for aliens they had never met, for a species that was not their own, simply because it was the right thing to do. Peter Grant and his coalition squad joined the advance, moving alongside the human Marines. Terran stared at the armored soldiers in amazement. "Your people are incredible," the Shallan said. "My people are stubborn," Peter corrected. "We just don't know when to quit." A group of Krell soldiers tried to make a stand at a major intersection. They set up heavy weapons and prepared to fight. Colonel Foster saw them and smiled inside her helmet. 2nd Squad, flank left. 3rd Squad, flank right. 1st Squad, suppress. On my mark. The human Marines moved into position. The Krell opened fire, their weapons tearing up the street. But the humans used cover well, moving from building to building, never staying in one place long enough to be targeted. "Mark," Foster said calmly. All 3 squads opened fire at once. The Krell position disappeared in a storm of bullets, plasma bolts, and explosions. When the smoke cleared, the intersection was empty except for abandoned weapons. "Keep moving," Foster ordered. "Don't let them regroup." In orbit, the battle was even more one-sided. The Krell fleet had been designed to win through numbers. They had big ships with heavy armor and powerful weapons. But they were slow and clumsy. Earth's carriers were smaller but faster. They danced through space like fighters, their human crews making split-second decisions that no computer could match. Lieutenant Greg Palmer sat at the weapons console on the Valiant. His hands moved across the controls like he was playing a musical instrument. "Target lock on their command ship. Firing main railgun." The railgun was Earth's answer to heavy armor. It did not use explosives or energy. It simply threw a piece of metal very, very fast. Fast enough that when it hit something, it went through like a hot knife through butter. The slug hit the Krell command ship and punched straight through from front to back. Secondary explosions ripped the vessel apart. "Command ship destroyed," Palmer reported, already moving to his next target. Commander Lisa Hayes brought the Defiant up alongside the Valiant. Her crew was exhausted but fighting hard. This was what Earth brought to the galaxy. Not just weapons, not just tactics, but the ability to work together under pressure, to adapt and overcome, to never give up. "Sir, the Krell fleet is breaking apart," the sensor officer reported. Morrison watched his tactical display. The Krell ships were scattering, trying to escape. "Don't let them run. I want every Krell ship that came here disabled or destroyed. They came to commit genocide. They don't get to just leave." The Earth fleet pursued, their weapons cutting through the Krell vessels one by one. Some Krell ships tried to fight back, others tried to run. None of them made it far. On the ground, General Cross watched his perfect plan fall apart. His forces were being crushed by these human warriors. Everywhere he looked, there were more of them, more of those terrifying armored soldiers, more of those deadly weapons. He tried to rally his troops, tried to form new defensive lines, but his soldiers were scared now. They had come here expecting to massacre peaceful aliens. They had not expected to fight humans. A human colonel appeared in front of Cross. Her armor was scorched and dented, but still working. Her weapon was steady, pointing at his chest. "Looking for a way out?" Colonel Foster asked. "Let me help you with that." Cross reached for his sidearm, but Foster was faster. A single shot from her rifle blew the weapon from his hand. "You are beaten," she said. "Order your forces to surrender." Cross looked around at his scattered, defeated army. He looked up at the sky where his fleet was being destroyed. He looked at the human soldiers who had appeared from nowhere and turned certain victory into crushing defeat. "I surrender," he said bitterly. Foster nodded. "Smart choice." She opened her comm channel. "Command, this is Foster. Enemy ground commander is in custody. The field is ours." All across the battlefield, the fighting was ending. Krell soldiers threw down their weapons and raised their hands. Some tried to run and were captured. A few tried to keep fighting and were quickly dealt with. The encirclement was broken. The siege was over. The coalition had survived. In the Talar Command Center, Ambassador Vren watched the tactical displays change from red to blue. Around him, officers from 6 species were crying, cheering, and embracing each other. Captain Morrison's face appeared on the main screen. His armor was dusty, but his eyes were bright. "Ambassador, I think we have broken their attack. Your capital is secure." Vren's translator struggled to express his emotions. "Captain Morrison, your species has saved us all. We owe you everything." The fires still burned in some parts of the city, but the sounds of battle had stopped. The morning sun rose over a world that had been saved from destruction. Smoke drifted through the streets, where just hours ago the fate of 6 species hung in the balance. Dr. Kate Sullivan had not slept in 20 hours. She worked in a makeshift hospital set up in what used to be a school building. Wounded soldiers from dozens of species filled every room. Some were coalition forces who had fought for months. Others were human Marines who had arrived just in time. Kate moved from bed to bed, her hands steady despite her exhaustion. She cleaned wounds, set broken bones, and administered medicine. A young Talar medic named Sela worked beside her, learning human medical techniques. "How do you keep going?" Sela asked. Her voice was tired. "You must be so exhausted." Kate smiled as she wrapped a bandage around a Shallan soldier's arm. "I learned a long time ago that you don't stop when you are tired. You stop when the work is done. But there are so many wounded." "Then we had better keep working," Kate said simply. Outside the hospital, Lieutenant Peter Grant finally allowed himself to rest. He sat on the steps of a damaged building, his rifle across his knees. His coalition squad sat around him. They were battered and dirty, but they were alive. Terran cleaned his weapon carefully. The young Shallan's crystal body still showed cracks from the battle, but he moved with new confidence. "Lieutenant Grant," Terran said quietly, "I don't understand your species." "What do you mean?" Peter asked. "You barely know us. You traveled across the galaxy. You risked your lives. Why?" Peter thought about the question. He looked at the city around them. at the families emerging from shelters, at the children who would grow up because Earth had answered their call. "Because you needed help," he said, "and we could give it. That is reason enough. But the danger, the cost? There is an old saying on Earth," Peter replied. "Evil wins when good people do nothing. We couldn't do nothing, not when we had the power to help." Taryn was quiet for a moment. "I hope I can be that brave someday." "You already are," Peter said. "You held that line for 3 hours against impossible odds. You fought when you could have run. That is real courage." In the command center, Ambassador Vren met with his council. They had survived, but now they had to plan for the future. The Krell would not forget this defeat. Neither would the other aggressive species in the galaxy. Commander Thex, the massive Bronthar, spoke first. "We need to build better defenses. We need to train our soldiers properly. We cannot rely on rescue again." "Agreed," said a Shallan representative. "But we are not warriors. We need help." "The humans are offering to leave advisors," Vren said. "Their 4th Legion will stay to help us train our forces. We need to accept." "Can we trust them?" another council member asked. "They are so different from us, so aggressive." Vren's 4 eyes fixed on the speaker. "They came when we called. They fought for us when they had no reason to. They lost soldiers saving our people. Yes, I think we can trust them." The council agreed. A new relationship was being born between humanity and the coalition species, built not on trade or politics, but on shared sacrifice. Captain Jack Morrison walked through the city streets, surveying the damage. Colonel Amy Foster walked beside him. Both still wore their combat armor, though the weapons were now powered down. "The casualty reports are in," Foster said. "We lost 43 Marines in the ground assault, another 100 wounded." Morrison's face tightened. 43 families back on Earth would get the worst news possible. 43 soldiers who had volunteered to save strangers would never go home. "They died well," he said quietly. "They died protecting others. There is no better death for a soldier." "Still hurts," Foster said. "Always does." They passed a group of Talar children playing in the street, laughing despite the destruction around them. The children stopped to stare at the armored humans with wide eyes. Morrison knelt down to their level. He removed his helmet so they could see his face. "Hello there," he said in careful Galactic common. The children approached slowly. One, a brave little girl, reached out to touch his armor. "Are you the humans who saved us?" she asked. "We helped," Morrison said, "but your own people fought hard too. They were very brave." "Will you stay?" another child asked. "Some of us will stay to help," Morrison said, "but most of us have to go home. We have other people who might need us." The girl thought about this. "Will you come back if the bad people return?" Morrison met her eyes. "If anyone threatens you again, if anyone tries to hurt your people, you send a message to Earth." "We will come. That is a promise." The children seemed satisfied with this answer. They ran off to play, their fears forgotten for the moment. Foster watched them go. "You really mean that, don't you? We will come if they call again." "Yes," Morrison said firmly. "We will always come." In orbit, Commander Lisa Hayes supervised repairs to the Defiant. The ship had taken heavy damage during the battle. Entire sections were exposed to space. Half the weapons systems were offline. But the crew was alive, and that was what mattered. Her executive officer, Lieutenant Ryan Cooper, floated beside her in zero gravity, examining a damaged hull plate. "It will take weeks to repair all this," he said. "Then we had better get started," Lisa replied. "We need to be ready for the journey home." "Do you think we will see more fights like this?" Ryan asked. Lisa looked out at the planet below. "I hope not. But if we do, we will be ready. That is what we do. We protect those who cannot protect themselves." Even when it costs us? Especially when it costs us, Lisa said. That is what separates us from species like the Krell. They only care about what they can take. We care about what we can give. General Cross sat in a detention cell, his pride shattered. Through the transparent wall, he could see human guards standing watch. They did not mock him or abuse him. They simply watched, professional and alert. A human officer entered the cell block. It was Colonel Foster, still in her combat armor. "General Cross," she said, "we need to talk about what happens next." "You will execute me," Cross said bitterly. "That is what we would do in your position." "We don't execute prisoners," Foster replied. "You will stand trial for war crimes. The coalition will decide your fate, not us." "Why?" Cross asked. "Why show mercy to someone who showed you none?" "Because we are not like you," Foster said simply. "We don't become monsters to fight monsters. We stay human, even in war. That is what makes us different." Cross was quiet for a long moment. "I don't understand your species." "Most don't," Foster said. "But maybe that is the point. Maybe the galaxy needs something it doesn't understand, something that will stand up and fight when others won't, something that believes in protecting the weak, even when it is hard." She turned to leave, then paused. "Your empire will hear about what happened here. They will know that Earth stands with the coalition. If they want peace, they can have it. If they want war, they can have that too. The choice is theirs." As night fell over the capital city, the coalition and human forces gathered for a ceremony. The dead would be honored, both those who had fallen in months of fighting and those who had died in the final battle. Ambassador Vren stood before the assembled troops. Behind him, holographic displays showed the faces of the fallen, thousands of them. Coalition soldiers who had never wanted to be warriors. Human Marines who had crossed the galaxy to save strangers. "Today we honor those who gave everything," Vren said. His words were translated into a dozen languages. They came from different worlds. They spoke different languages. They had different dreams, but they shared one belief, that some things are worth fighting for, that freedom matters, that life has value. He paused, looking at the human soldiers standing at attention. The humans have a saying, "Greater love has no one than this, that someone lay down their life for their friends." Today, we mourn friends from many worlds. Tomorrow, we build a future worthy of their sacrifice. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence. In that quiet, each person remembered someone they had lost, a friend, a comrade, a fellow soldier. Then, slowly, life began to return to normal. Families reunited, shops reopened, children went back to school. The city would bear scars for years, but it would survive. Captain Morrison stood on the bridge of the Valiant, preparing for departure. His mission was complete. The coalition was safe. The Krell were defeated. It was time to go home. 3 days after the battle, the city was slowly coming back to life. Workers cleared rubble from the streets. Engineers repaired damaged buildings. Merchants reopened their shops. But everywhere you looked, there were reminders of what had happened. Blast marks on walls, empty spaces where buildings used to stand, families with missing members. Lieutenant Peter Grant walked through the market district with Terran. The young Shallan had become something like a student to him over the months of fighting. Now Terran was about to become a real soldier in the Coalition Defense Force. "The 4th Legion is setting up a training camp outside the city," Peter said. "You should join. They will teach you things I never could." "Will you be there?" Terran asked. Peter shook his head. "I am going back to Earth with the 7th Legion, but you don't need me anymore. You never really did." "That is not true. Without you, we would have broken in the first week." "Without you, there would have been no one to save," Peter countered. "You held that line, Terran. You and thousands like you. You were farmers and artists and teachers who learned to be warriors because you had to. That takes real strength. They stopped at a memorial that had been quickly erected in the city square. It showed the names of all the coalition soldiers who had died in the 3-month siege. Thousands of names in dozens of languages. So many dead, Taryn said quietly. Yes, Peter agreed. War always costs too much, but sometimes the cost of not fighting is even higher. The Krell would have killed millions. You saved those millions by fighting. I hope I never have to fight again. Me too, Peter said. But if you do, you will be ready. In the Human Field Hospital, Dr. Kate Sullivan was training a group of coalition medical personnel. She showed them human surgical techniques, human medicine, human emergency procedures. The aliens absorbed the knowledge eagerly. Your species knows so much about treating injuries, Sela observed. You must have studied medicine for thousands of years. We have, Kate said, but not by choice. Humans have been fighting each other for our entire history. We learned medicine because we needed to save the wounded. Every technique I am teaching you was developed on a battlefield somewhere on Earth. That is sad, a Bronthar medic said. Yes, Kate agreed, but it is also useful. We learned hard lessons so you don't have to. That is worth something. She showed them how to treat plasma burns, how to set broken bones in different alien physiologies, how to perform emergency surgery with limited supplies. The coalition medics practiced on simulation dummies, their various appendages working to master human techniques. Will you leave us too? Sela asked. Tomorrow, Kate said, but other human doctors will stay. They will continue your training, and you can always call Earth if you need help. You have given us so much, Sela said. Knowledge, protection, hope. How can we ever repay you? Kate smiled. By doing the same for others someday. When you see someone who needs help, you give it. That is how you repay us. You pass it forward. Colonel Amy Foster met with the coalition military leaders in a hastily repaired building that served as the new command center. Maps covered the walls showing troop positions, defensive lines, supply routes. Your forces fought well, Foster said, but you need better organization, better equipment, better training. Commander Thex nodded his massive head. We know. We were never meant to be soldiers. Neither were humans originally, Foster said. We were farmers and hunters. But we learned. You can learn too. She pointed to the maps. The 4th Legion will stay for 6 months. They will help you build a real military, not just soldiers, but everything a military needs. Supply chains, communication networks, medical support, command structure. 6 months seems short, a Shallan officer said. It is, Foster admitted, but it is a start. After that, you will be on your own, though Earth will always be available for consultation and support. What if the Krell come back? Thex asked. Then you fight, Foster said bluntly, and you call us. We will come again if needed, but the goal is to make you strong enough that you can defend yourselves. She stood and faced the assembled officers. You need to understand something. Earth cannot protect the entire galaxy. We are one species with limited resources. We can help. We can fight alongside you. But ultimately, you need to be able to stand on your own. The officers looked uncomfortable but nodded. They knew she was right. However, Foster continued, Earth will never abandon you. If you face genocide again, if you face an enemy you cannot defeat alone, you send a message. We will come. That is a promise from Earth to the Coalition. In orbit, Captain Jack Morrison met with the Krell prisoners, who would be turned over to Coalition justice. General Cross stood at the front of the group, his reptilian features showing defeat. You will be tried by the Coalition for war crimes, Morrison said. I cannot tell you what your sentence will be. That is for them to decide. We were following orders, one of the prisoners said. That is not an excuse, Morrison replied coldly. You chose to follow orders that you knew were wrong. You chose to participate in genocide. Those choices have consequences. Cross spoke up. What will your species do now? Will you try to conquer the Krell Empire? Morrison laughed without humor. We don't want your empire. We don't want to rule anyone. We just want peace. Then you are fools, Cross said. Peace is an illusion. The strong take what they want. The weak suffer. That is the law of the universe. No, Morrison said firmly. That is the law of predators. Humans learned a long time ago that cooperation is stronger than conquest. We are trying to teach that to the galaxy. You cannot change the galaxy, Cross said. Watch us, Morrison replied. Commander Lisa Hayes finished the last repairs to the Defiant personally. She floated outside the ship in a spacesuit, welding a damaged hull plate into place. The work was meditative, giving her time to think. The battle had been won, but at a cost. Earth had lost 43 Marines and 5 pilots. The Defiant alone had lost 12 crew members when a Krell missile breached the engineering section. She knew each of their names. She had written letters to each of their families. Was it worth it? She had asked herself that question 100 times since the battle ended. 43 human lives traded for millions of alien lives. The mathematics said yes, but mathematics could not capture the grief of a parent who lost a child, a spouse who lost a partner, a child who lost a parent. Yet she knew the answer. It was worth it. Not because alien lives mattered more than human lives, but because all lives mattered equally. Those Marines had volunteered knowing the risks. They had died doing what they believed was right. That had to mean something. Lieutenant Greg Palmer, the young weapons officer who had performed so well in battle, found her floating by the ship. Ma'am, the captain wants to know when we will be ready to jump, he said through the radio. Tell him 2 hours, Lisa replied. We are almost done here. Ma'am, can I ask you something? Go ahead. Do you think we will have to do this again? Fight another battle like this? Lisa finished her welding and turned to face him. Probably. The galaxy has a lot of species like the Krell. Aggressive, expansionist, willing to kill for what they want. As long as they exist, peaceful species will need protection. So we will keep fighting. Yes, Lisa said. We will keep fighting, because someone has to. Because if we don't, who will? I can think of worse jobs, Palmer said. So can I, Lisa agreed. Ambassador Vren stood in his office, looking at the city through a repaired window. Captain Morrison had come to say goodbye before the fleet departed. I wish you could stay longer, Vren said. So do I, Morrison replied. But we have other commitments, other places that might need us. Will we see you again? Probably not me personally, Morrison said, but you will see other humans, traders, diplomats, advisors, scientists. We are part of the galactic community now. We are not going anywhere. Vren turned to face him. Your species has changed everything. Before you arrived, we thought we understood the galaxy. We thought we knew how things worked. The strong conquered, the weak submitted. That was the natural order. And now? Morrison asked. Now we see another possibility, that the strong can protect instead of conquer, that different species can work together. That courage and honor still mean something. Morrison smiled. Those things always meant something. You just needed someone. The day of departure arrived with clear skies and a cool wind. The 7 Vanguard carriers hung in orbit, fully repaired and ready for the journey home. On the ground, the human forces prepared to board their transports. Only the 4th Legion would remain, and they were already setting up their training facilities outside the city. Lieutenant Peter Grant stood at the spaceport with his coalition squad for the last time. They had fought together, bled together, and survived together. Now it was time to say goodbye. I wish you were staying, Terrence said. The young Shallon's voice was sad but steady. You will be fine without me, Peter replied. Better than fine. You are a real soldier now. Only because you taught me. No, Peter said firmly. I just showed you what you already had inside. The courage was always yours. He looked at each member of his squad. A Bronthar named Kellen, a tailor named Mira, 2 more Shallons, both veterans now, a Hiver scout who rarely spoke but fought like 3 soldiers. Take care of each other, Peter said. Watch each other's backs. Remember what we learned together. We will, Kellen promised. His stone face cracked in what might have been a smile. Peter saluted them one final time. They returned the salute, copying the human gesture they had learned months ago. Then he turned and walked toward his transport, not looking back. Looking back would make leaving too hard. Dr. Kate Sullivan gave her last lecture to the Coalition medical staff. She had covered everything she could in 3 days: advanced trauma care, burn treatment, battlefield surgery, emergency medicine for multiple species. Remember, she told them, medicine is about more than just treating injuries. It is about giving hope. When someone is wounded and scared, your calm confidence can be as healing as your medicine. Sella raised her hand. What if we face something we cannot treat? Something we have never seen before? Then you do your best with what you know, Kate said. You improvise. You adapt. You never give up on a patient as long as they are still breathing. She packed her medical equipment into cases. The human doctors who are staying will continue your education. Listen to them, learn from them, but also teach them. They can learn from you too. Thank you for everything, Sella said. You saved so many lives. We saved them together, Kate corrected. You were beside me for every surgery, every treatment. You did the work too. As Kate left the hospital, she looked back one time. The building was full of wounded, but it was also full of hope. The Coalition would survive. They would rebuild. They would be ready next time. Colonel Amy Foster conducted her final meeting with the Coalition Military Command. She had given them everything she could: training plans, tactical manuals, supply recommendations, command structures. The most important thing to remember, she told them, is that military strength is not just about weapons and soldiers. It is about will. It is about the determination to defend what matters. Commander Thex nodded. We understand now. We were weak because we believed violence solved nothing. But we learned that sometimes violence is necessary to stop greater violence. Just remember, Foster said, don't become like the Krell. Don't become predators yourselves. Stay true to who you are. Be warriors when you must, but never forget that you are scientists, artists, builders first. That is your real strength. We will remember, Thex promised. Foster saluted the alien officers. They returned the gesture, their various limbs and appendages creating a strange but moving display of respect. In orbit, Commander Lisa Hayes ran final checks on the Defiant. The ship was spaceworthy again, though it would need more extensive repairs when they reached Earth. Her crew was tired but proud. They had fought well. They had survived. Lieutenant Ryan Cooper approached her on the bridge. All systems are green. We are ready to jump whenever the captain gives the word. Good, Lisa said. She looked at the planet below one last time. It is beautiful, isn't it? Worth fighting for. Yes, ma'am, Ryan agreed. Makes you wonder how many other beautiful worlds are out there. How many other species might need our help someday? A lot, probably, Lisa said. But we will be ready. On the Valiant, Captain Jack Morrison stood in the command center, surrounded by his officers. The entire fleet was ready to depart. The mission was complete. Victory had been achieved. But Morrison felt no triumph, only quiet satisfaction mixed with sadness. 43 good people had died under his command. That weighed on him, as it always did. Command meant responsibility, and responsibility meant carrying the weight of every decision. Sir, all ships report ready, Commander Danny Price said. Morrison nodded. He opened a channel to the entire fleet. This is Captain Morrison to all ships. In a few moments, we will leave this system and return home. What we did here will be remembered. Not just by us, but by the 6 species we saved. We showed the galaxy what Earth stands for. We showed them that humanity will fight for what is right. He paused, choosing his words carefully. We lost friends in this battle. Good people who gave their lives for strangers. That sacrifice will not be forgotten. When we get home, we will honor them properly. For now, know that they died as heroes. They died defending the innocent. There is no higher calling for a soldier. Another pause. The Krell came here to conquer and destroy. We came to protect and preserve. That difference defines us. That difference is why we will always fight when called. That difference is what makes us human. He took a breath. Set course for Earth. Let us go home. The fleet began to move, slowly at first, then faster as they built up speed for the jump. On the planet below, millions watched them go. Ambassador Vren stood in the command center with his council, watching the human ships prepare to leave. A Shallan counselor spoke up. Do you think they will really come back if we need them? Yes, Vren said without hesitation. They promised, and humans keep their promises. How can you be sure? Because they came the first time, Vren replied. They had no reason to help us. We could offer them nothing. We were strangers, but they came anyway. They fought for us. They died for us. Species that do that do not break their promises. The human ships reached the jump point. For a moment they seemed to hang there, suspended in space. Then, one by one, they vanished into faster-than-light travel, leaving only brief flashes of light behind. They are gone, the counselor said quietly. No, Vren corrected. They are simply not here. But if we ever need them again, they will return. That is what allies do. The council was quiet for a moment. Then another member spoke. What do we do now? We rebuild, Vren said. We train. We prepare. We make sure that next time we can help ourselves. And someday when another species needs help, we will be the ones who answer their call. We will be like the humans. We will protect the weak. That is a bold dream, Thek said. The humans showed us it is possible, Vren replied. They showed us that strength can be used to protect instead of conquer. That is a lesson worth learning. In the transport ship carrying Peter Grant back to orbit, the lieutenant looked down at the planet as it grew smaller. He had spent 3 months there, fighting a desperate defensive war. He had made friends, lost comrades, learned what it meant to be a soldier in the worst possible way. But he had also seen something beautiful. He had seen peaceful species find courage they did not know they had. He had seen them stand together against overwhelming odds. He had seen them refuse to give up even when defeat seemed certain. That was worth fighting for. That was worth dying for. A young Marine sat down beside him. Sir, do you think we made a difference? Look down there, Peter said, pointing at the planet. See those lights? Those are cities full of people who are alive because we came. 6 species that would have been wiped out are still here. Yes, we made a difference. Do you think we will do it again? Probably, Peter said. The galaxy is a big place. There are probably dozens of species like the Coalition. Peaceful people who just want to live their lives. And there are probably predators like the Krell who want to take from them. So we will keep fighting. Yes, Peter said, we will keep fighting, because someone has to. Because if we don't, who will? The transport docked with the Valiant. Peter and the other soldiers filed off, returning to their ship. Soon they would be in their bunks, sleeping for the first time in days. But first, they had one duty to perform. The entire Legion assembled in the main hangar bay. Captain Morrison stood before them, his face serious. Today we honor our fallen, he said. 43 Marines and pilots who gave their lives in this mission. They came from different places, had different backgrounds, different dreams. But they shared one belief, that protecting the innocent is worth any price. He read the names. Each one echoed through the hangar. For each name, a Marine stepped forward and placed a memorial token on a table at the front. 43 tokens for 43 heroes. When the ceremony ended, Morrison spoke again. These people are gone, but their legacy remains. They showed the galaxy what humanity stands for. They proved that we are worthy of our place among the stars. They will be remembered. The Legion saluted. The gesture was held for a long moment, honoring the dead. Then, slowly, they dispersed. Life continued. The ship prepared for the long journey home. As the Vanguard fleet traveled through faster-than-light space, messages began spreading across the galaxy. The Krell had been defeated. A coalition of peaceful species had survived. Earth had intervened and turned the tide. Some species dismissed the stories as exaggeration. Others took note and adjusted their plans. A few, those who had been considering their own aggressive expansion, quietly shelved those ideas. Earth had made a statement. They were small, but dangerous. They were new, but determined. They would fight for what they believed in. 20 days later, the fleet arrived at Earth. They were greeted as heroes. Parades were held. Medals were awarded. Stories were told. But in quiet ceremonies, away from the cameras and crowds, 43 families received folded flags and sincere condolences. Their loved ones had died far from home, fighting for people they had never met. Captain Morrison attended every funeral he could. He shook hands with grieving parents. He hugged crying spouses. He knelt down to talk to confused children who would grow up without mothers and fathers. It never got easier. But it was his responsibility. He had given the orders that sent those people into danger. The least he could do was face their families. At one funeral, a mother approached him. Her son had been a young Marine, barely 20 years old. "Was it worth it?" she asked. "Did my son die for something important?" Morrison met her eyes. "Your son saved millions of lives. 6 entire species are alive because of what he did. Yes, it was worth it. I know that doesn't make your pain less, but he died a hero." She cried, and Morrison stood with her, offering what comfort he could. Years passed. The coalition rebuilt their world. They trained their military. They grew stronger. And when another species faced genocide 20 years later, the coalition was among the first to answer the call. Earth's vanguard legions fought alongside them, 2 allies standing together against tyranny. The galaxy was changing. Slowly, carefully, species were learning that cooperation was stronger than conquest, that protecting the weak was the mark of true strength. It was not a perfect change. There were still wars, still suffering, still predators who preyed on the innocent. But now there were also defenders. Led by Earth, but joined by others, they stood ready to fight when called. And in quiet moments, when asked why humans did what they did, the answer was always simple. Because someone has to stand against the darkness, because protecting the innocent is worth any cost, because when peaceful people are threatened, the strong have a duty to protect them. That was what it meant to be human. That was what it meant to be a vanguard. They would always come when called. They would always fight for what was right. They would never abandon those who needed them. That was the promise Earth had made to the galaxy. And humanity always kept their promises. Oh, remind you. "You lost soldiers saving us," Vren said. 43 of them. How do I honor that sacrifice? By building something worth protecting, Morrison said simply. By becoming strong enough to help others someday. By remembering that the universe does not have to be ruled by predators. "We will try," Vren promised. "That is all anyone can do." They shook hands, human and alien, representatives of two species who had found common ground in the defense of life and freedom. As Captain Morrison left, Vren looked back out at his city. It was scarred but surviving, broken but rebuilding. The Coalition had learned a hard lesson, but they had survived to learn it, and they would never forget the day Earth arrived. "All ships report ready for jump," Commander Price said. Morrison took one last look at the planet on his screen. Millions of lives had been saved. That was worth 43 dead Marines. It was worth the damaged ships and expended ammunition. It was worth everything they had given. "Set course for Earth," he ordered. "Let us go home." As the fleet prepared to leave, one thought filled Morrison's mind. This would not be the last time. There would be other threatened species, other desperate calls for help, other battles against impossible odds. And Earth would answer. They would always answer. That was what it meant to be human. "You don't owe us anything," Morrison replied. "We are part of the same galactic community now. That means we watch out for each other. Besides, nobody gets to bully our friends." As the sun began to rise over the capital city, the last shots were fired. The battle was won. Earth's vanguard legions had arrived just in time, and they had done exactly what they promised. They had held the line. They had broken the siege. They had saved millions of lives. And they had sent a message to the entire galaxy. When peaceful people are threatened, when the strong prey on the weak, when genocide looms, Earth will come. They will always come. 20 meters. The Krell commander raised his weapon high, roaring in victory. His soldiers charged forward for the final attack, 10 meters. Peter prepared to make his last stand. And then the sky above them tore open like fabric ripping apart. Light poured through the opening, followed by thunder that shook the ground. Ships, massive and powerful, emerged from impossible space. Earth had arrived. The Krell commander stopped in mid-charge, looking up at the sky with sudden fear in his eyes. The real battle was about to begin.